Brian Flaherty, and this is my presentation, which is an integration of environmental education. That's what it's titled. Basically, what I'm talking about is how to integrate environmental education into traditional classrooms. Do we have any teachers in here? I know you are. You are. So I'm guessing, well, with you guys, you're probably more savvy to hands-on experience and environmental adventure education, stuff like that. What I'm talking about mostly is how to integrate environmental ed and experiential ed into a traditional classroom where the teachers do lecture-based education, a lot of me talking, you learning kind of stuff, which works for some people. I don't. So that's kind of what I'm going over today. So to start this, I want to know, and this is kind of an interactive piece here, what is environmental education to you guys? And feel free to throw a hand up. Anyone? Please.
I feel like it's about helping people or students feel a connection to their place, wherever that place is, and feeling a part of it and not just someone, not someone who just inhabits the space, but someone who embodies that space.
Great, so like really creating a connection with your environment and learning about it that way. Mm-hmm. Right. Does anybody else? Yeah.
Well, I'm like a 90s kid, so it was real big on preventing forest fires, the whole reduce, reuse, recycle type of campaign.
Awesome. So I'm going to give you guys a direct quote from the EPA's website about what environmental education is. Environmental education is a process that allows individuals to explore environmental issues, engage in problem solving, and take action to improve the environment. So a lot of the same stuff, preventing forest fires, getting a good connection with your environment, stuff like that. So with this in mind, with all of our definitions, does the traditional student have access to these experiences in schools? And we don't need to answer that just yet. We'll discuss it later as long as we have time. The other question I want to ask, do our teachers have the tools to give those students the experiences? So our traditional teachers, are they able, like let's say that they're fresh out of college from their program, are they able to give these experiences to their students? Maybe, maybe not. So yeah, that's just something to keep in mind with the rest of my presentation. So the way that I look at the environment and teaching outside or adventure-based, experiential-based, anything like that, is it's a huge classroom. So if everybody could go ahead and just take a look outside through the windows and just name a couple of things that you see. Like just throw your hand up.
Air.
Air.
Clouds.
Clouds. What
Trees.
else? Trees. One more?
Sunshine.
Sunshine. Great. So those are all things that can actually be used to teach. And personally, I've used clouds and trees and leaves to teach when I was teaching kindergarten. Really easy stuff to use. Let's go outside. Let's count the leaves. How many leaves have fallen on the ground? Everybody go pick up 5 rocks and let's count them all together. You can even get into the more difficult stuff. I don't have the experience or knowledge to do it, but you can talk about terrain and history and how this was created, or how erosion works, how these mountains got here. There's a lot of stuff that can go into it. Really fascinating, but again, I don't have the knowledge or experience to really teach or discuss that at length. So, I would like to just kind of talk to you guys about a program that's already happening. Actually, it's a number of programs that are happening. The biggest one, I guess the most popular one that I found, is called the Edible Schoolyard Project. Has anybody heard of that? Yeah, a couple people? Great. Now what happens with the Edible Schoolyard Project, it was originally started to make a school look a little more appealing, less downtrodden and rough. And it was just on this, about an acre of land. And what happened is they started planting stuff there. And then a couple of teachers got behind it and said, well, we can use these fruits and vegetables to teach. So what they did is they brought these fruits and vegetables in, and they started teaching fractions off of the cut. So you can take a tomato and you can cut it in half. And that's a really easy way to say, hey, this is what a fraction is, instead of making a circle, cutting it in half, and saying that's what a fraction is. That way the students are able to get their hands on it, feel it, smell it, taste it, experience it. They have a connection with it because maybe they like tomatoes, They're going to remember that just a little bit more, I think, personally. So, Paul Chapman, in a few of his articles actually, has wrote about the benefits to school gardens. And it's really fascinating. I definitely say look him up and read what he has to say. But from his articles and research, it's improved social development. It's gotten kids to really focus in schools when they get back, so their testing has gotten a lot better. And one of the things that I really liked about it, and is more important to me, I think, more because I grew up in a farming area, but it teaches these students how to work, and it gets them away from technology. I mean, sure, you can have your phone on you when you're digging a hole, but you can't use the phone to dig the hole. So you're actually learning how to work and how to be a part of it. You're getting your connection with nature. You're starting to grow your food. You have that personal connection with it, and you're experiencing it, which I think is fascinating. So from this point, I'm going to give you guys an example of both sides of this educational standpoint. I'm going to show you the first one traditionally, and then the second one experientially. Same lesson, two ways. So if you would all bear with me, I'd like you all to pretend that you're in elementary school. We just got up from that time. We're going to learn about plant growth. So who here can tell me what this is? Go ahead and raise your hand if you want.
A perennial bulb?
Perennial bulb? It's a big word for a third grader. No, but yeah, this is a bulb, a seed bulb. So what happens when, what would we do with this? Plant it. Yeah, you plant it. So you take it, you plant it in the dirt, cover it up, put some water in it, and with sunlight, air, with the soil, it's going to grow and turn into a plant. Perfect. Everybody can see it. So this is more of a style with traditional. I'm talking to you guys. I can engage you as much as possible, but there's some people in the corner on computers who aren't engaged. So, I'm actually moving pretty fast time-wise. This is awesome. So what I'd like to do now is kind of go on to the experiential part, which has its ups and downs. It does take more time, but I feel like it's a more lasting lesson. So what I'd like everybody to do now is to circle up. So if you could move your chair into a circle. All right, so, and this is a fairly simple thing to do in any kind of classroom. As you can see, we're in a classroom right now, and I'm still able to give kind of the experiential side of this. So, again, pretend that you're all young students for me. What we have here is some dirt. What can we do with the dirt? Mud baths. I know what kind of student you were. All right, so in this bag, I have tulip bulbs, and these are red emperor tulip bulbs. So I would like everybody to grab one, please. And I have more than enough for everyone. But when you get it, I want you to take a look at it, like really see what it is. What's it got on it? Oh, just take a look at it.
Looks like a shallot.
Yeah. Don't eat it.
Why not?
Why not? I mean, you can, but
Oh.
your mom's probably not going to be too happy with me.
That was like a
It has a skin.
It has skin? Yeah, so when you get your tulip bulb, just look at it. What observations do you see of it? It has skin. Some of you guys can see it, and it has like a secretion coming out of the side, like a sap.
Like Super Mario Brothers 2.
Yeah.
How happens if I feel it?
Can you feel it? I don't think I can, So, did everybody get one? All right. So, everybody hold up your tulip bulb. Can everybody feel it? Can everybody smell it? You can taste it if you want. don't taste it though. That might be gross. It's got dirt and manure on it. But, so everybody can see their tulip and everyone can feel it. Now, if we were to take this and to plant these like they want to be, how would we plant it? Would we plant it with the fuzzy side up?
I don't know.
Maybe. Would we plant it with the tip pointing up? I feel like that's a little more probable. So, if you look at the bottom, and everybody can see this now, go ahead and look at the bottom. Those are the roots. So obviously we want the roots to go down so we can reach down and pick up more water, nutrients, everything. And then the top will grow out, it'll get the sunlight, and it'll start to grow. So it's pretty cool, huh? So from here, I have a big pot of dirt. Now what can we do with a big pot of dirt in our tulip bulbs? Anybody? Yes.
Plant it.
Yeah, we can plant it. So, let's plant them. Now what we do when we're planting them is these particular tulip bulbs like to be 6 inches deep. I understand that there's a lot of us here and I only have one pot of dirt. So, we don't have to plant it 6 inches deep. But I would like everybody to get up there, feel the dirt, get your tulip bulb in there the right way, and then we can cover it up. So let's go ahead and line up and plant them. You can set up. It doesn't have to be.
Like when I lived in
I don't think so.
Michigan, they would come
Destroying the environment.
Hire system out of whack.
Just for one presentation.
No, you can.
All right, did everybody get a chance to plant theirs?
What if you don't want to do it?
You don't want to?
What if your student doesn't want to do it? What if
They
you
don't
have
have to.
someone who wants?
It's all about experience, and challenge by choice. If you want to do it, you can. You can experience if you don't want to. At least you got to hold this and you got to see what everybody else did. It still gives you kind of a unique experience in the lesson. I know. That dirt on your nails is rough. Awesome. So, did everybody get a chance to plant their tulip bulb? What did you guys think of that? Like, what did you experience? What did you feel? What were you thinking while you were planting it? Your hands dirty.
It felt cold.
Sure it felt cold?
Felt invested, like, I want to do this right, so
Yeah.
that it actually grows.
Because if you're planting this, do you want to plant it wrong and then it'll just die under there? And then you're at fault for tulip murder? Yeah. But you're a little more invested in it. You are responsible for that now. So, if we had more time, I would have us water this, put it out by the sunlight, and that way, and then, also start to monitor it throughout the year. This could, right now, is more of a quick lesson to kind of show what experiential and environmental education can be in a traditional classroom. It's very simple to bring in, and it can create a ton of lessons afterward. So one such example is at the museum I'm currently working at, we have a program called Tulips Journey North. And what happens is we take these tulip bulbs and these pots and dirt, if they don't have a garden area, and we take them to schools all over Utah. And we give them a chance to experience what you guys just experienced. So we go into these classrooms, we give everybody a tulip bulb, and then we all get to plant them. And then in the spring, we come back and we get to monitor their growth. We get to see how tall they grow. Does it have flowers on it? Did they make it? If they didn't make it, why didn't they make it? Were they planted wrong? Was there a frost? Were they not getting enough water or sunlight? So there's a lot that can go into it. And then there's all that science behind it too that a science teacher can really take and work with. We can throw math into it. How many tulip bulbs do we have in this one section? How far apart were they? Yeah.
I just wanted to comment on just the sense of community and putting it all in one pot, because I've experienced something similar, but everyone got their own thing, and so I feel like it becomes more of a competitive nature of like whose is better, who's is biggest and the prettiest. But when you put it all in one pot, it's all of ours.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we really like doing is there's really no way to track whose is who when you put it in a kind of community area. One of the ones that I went on, the garden was probably from here to there, and we had 4 classrooms of 30 kids planting tulip bulbs in it. So it was very crowded, but now there's no way that they can all identify which one was specifically theirs. All they can see is this growth and how cool it looks afterward. And they got to experience it. They got to dig down. They got to feel it with their hands and experience it and what's going on. So now that we've done the debrief, you guys can all be your regular ages again. Whether how immature you want to be, that's up to you. And that's pretty much the wrap up of this lesson. So from here, I would like to discuss what you guys think as educators, as professionals, no matter what you do. I would just like to hear what you think about environmental education coming into a classroom and trying to integrate it into traditional styles. Kind of an open discussion if we have time.
Does it usurp the field trip? How do you feel about the field trips? I would love field trips.
I love field trips, and I don't think it would, because field trips, do you work in a school?
I have.
Yeah, and so you'll understand how heady a field trip is, getting the buses, getting the students, getting the permission. So field trips are still possible, and you can go to a certain area so they can experience this entire area that has a certain lesson about it. But this is just something that you can bring in at any time, or you can develop any other kind of lesson. So the school garden programs, for example, it's right there with them. You can create lessons off of it. You can teach them how to work. You can teach them how to play nicely with others, how to share, how to work together, how to do fractions, anything like that.
I think it's like so important. Like when I was younger, I lived in Pennsylvania, and like they like taught us like where the apples come from, like how to harvest the apples, like how to make the cider out of the apples, like everything like that. And then it makes you like think about like where you're getting it from. Like, when you see that cider in the store, like, oh, I know how to do that. Like I know where it came from. It's like it gives you appreciation for like everything like around us. So I think it's really important.
Connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gives you a connection with your environment.
Yeah. And economics.
Something fresh in my mind from the experiential ed conference is the philosophy of experiential education is still sort of marginalized in comparison to traditional methods, but experiential learning is something that we as humans do naturally. Our first, steps, body training, words, language are all learned through experiential learning. And it's just weird that once we get into elementary school and beyond that, that whole idea sort of gets left behind.
And then you get to the point where you watch me draw stuff on the board, and then you guys learn it.
Absolutely. Which isn't as effective, and so incorporating experiential ed into whatever the lesson may be is ultimately more effective in my opinion.
Yeah.
I also like, sorry, go ahead, Drew.
Well, I think I just have this fear with environmental education that it remains a separate subject. Like, oh, this is the special time that we talk about the environment and deal with it. And then you walk away and you're like, oh no, I don't need to think about it right now because it's not environmental time. And so really working on integrating it into an entire system and helping students see it as a system that you're constantly interacting with, even if you aren't putting bulbs in the soil.
Yeah. And just integrating it fully into our traditional curriculum or our core curriculum, whatever they want us to learn, so math, science, history. Fairly easy to do, but we need to be able to provide the tools to the teachers to provide the experiences to the students.
I would say I really appreciate and like the fact that this allows people who may not have otherwise qualified themselves as an experiential educator to be so. And I think that oftentimes that role in traditional settings is like there's somebody that is a responsible for the gear shack and responsible for the wilderness tripping, and they're the experiential educator. And we forget to involve or include science teachers, art teachers, history, math teachers that are really, dynamic in what they present to the kids, who would, in so many ways, shapes and form, if they're presenting a lesson like this, qualify as an experiential educator. We had a long discussion about that at the AE regional conference last spring, about how to be a little more inclusive in terms of who is defined as an experiential educator.
I was just going to say also at that, immediately as we circled that, different classes that I took at the AE conference really came out of this system of sitting and watching you as a teacher, and we're all kind of segmented to, now we're in this group.
Yeah.
Is that a focus that you do when you go into the schools as well? Do you get to circle them up, or do you synchronize them and then they have to take their turn? Like, people just jumped up, you said, get in line, and no one was like, oh, well, I'm the first seat, so I'm going to go. Like, no, it was very...
Just to add to that real quick, I felt completely more engaged once we got into it.
Yeah.
From sitting here and staring up in front of the class to when you said get into a circle, I felt where I could see everybody in the class, I felt way more engaged.
Because now you're not behind a huge group of people, or you're not in front of a huge group of people. Yeah. Now everybody, personally, I feel that when we circle up, and a lot of AE students and teachers agree, I think, but circling up,
We live in circles.
yeah. Yeah, and it works a lot better, I think, because now we can be engaged. You can see across to here, you can see over there, we can see everybody. And we can have our focus in the center, or we can still be staring up at me talking, but either way, it's different, I think. And I enjoy it more, both as a teacher and a student. I always like it more when we were in a circle. I'm able to see everybody instead of the one guy sitting in the back hiding. not to put you on the spot or anything.
The whole time.
I know you had mentioned Paul Chapman. I wondered what other kind of in-classroom experiences you can reference, or you can pull from to inform this whole process. I know that OB in the classroom has started up for a couple years in the Bay Area with some challenging school environments, and OB in Singapore is also doing similar kind of programming where it's kind of what you talked about, where it's a segmented part of the day where it's like this is the OB period, and then they build up to longer trips. So getting into what you were talking about as well, so because they're kind of working towards something, but that's how they integrate it into more of the classroom, is by having them buy in slowly as opposed to buying all at once.
Yeah, and there are expeditionary learning schools that kind of take the same meaning to heart in the classroom, so it's a lot more engaging, and you're able to really see and experience and figure it out. At the museum that I work at, we use something called inquiry-based learning. So we can have a set lesson, but it's more about what the student wants to know. So let's say you were interested in learning about bugs. We can provide bugs, but what do you want to know specifically about these bugs? You can right now you can see, oh, this one has 6 legs, or this one has 8 legs, this one is missing legs. You just learn more about it. So it's all about what you are interested in, and we provide the experiences for you to take. So when you're not interested anymore, you switch to something else and go learn about something else. But that way it keeps you engaged because you want to know what's going on with this particular subject. Now, just to kind of bring it back one step, I think you were just asking about different programs that can be brought into the classroom. One that I heard about recently, and by recently I mean last summer, is it's a program that starts out in kindergarten and it works its way all the way up through high school. And what happens in kindergarten is it's environmental education. What you do is you take your class outside and go find a tree, and that tree becomes that student's tree. So it's giving them a connection. So like for the rest of the year, you'll go out and you'll hang out with your tree. You can draw, you can color, you can write. You get to spend time with it though, and that's designated class time. So you can go out there and do your math problems, but you have to do it by your tree. You can go out there and clean it, but you just kind of hang out with it. And then the next year, you learn more about what kind of tree it is, where else that tree grows, what else happens to the tree, are there bugs in the tree, And it just kind of keeps growing and growing. So you start out with this engagement in your local environment. So I could go into any classroom right now and say, okay, the rainforest is dying. Let's help it. And yeah, I mean, a lot of students are going to be interested in helping it, but that's a world away. They've never experienced that before. But if you give them a tree and you say, this is yours, what would you do to save this tree? They're going to start thinking locally. This is close to me. This is something that I could do. So we can make sure someone doesn't chop it down. We can try to figure out ways to keep bugs and deer off of it so it doesn't get eaten. There's a bunch of different stuff that can happen, and that just creates the connection with the environment. They can cut the leaves off of it too. I'm jumping back. But it starts out with a really basic connection with your local environment, and from that you can grow into broader environments. So then you can start thinking about the rainforest getting chopped down, or how the oceans are rising, or anything like that, really. Yeah.
I just wanted to say I feel like it's really important to keep that curriculum going throughout high school because I feel like it's very elementary and then you just forget about it.
Yeah.
So even just incorporating like high schoolers, junior high, going down to elementary and teaching those kids or just helping out partake just keeps it fresh in your mind.
That's a really good idea, and turning it into kind of a circle of environmental education.
I think growing up to what you're talking about, like the curriculum, like I remember in like 5th and 6th grade, and learning about these like rainforests and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know, what that even looks like. Like, how do I apply this to that, And
yeah.
I think like maybe somehow, I don't know if somebody could do this, but like change the curriculum to where it's not like these huge problems where like when we get older, we look at things and we see it on the news or something like, how do we fix that, And then people get like, oh, I'm not environment friendly because I don't do this, but really, if you just do your part,
Yeah.
that's what.
And actually, and if you guys are interested, I can send my qualifying paper out to you guys, but I talk a lot about how once we're thrown into environmental education, a lot of us feel overwhelmed with the conditions that we're in. It's like the rainforest is dying, the ice caps are melting, the ozone's depleting, and this is your fault, and you have to do something about it right now. You feel overwhelmed, and you don't really know what you can do about it. But if you start them out young and you don't overload them with all of this emergency stuff that's happening and say, let's go hang out with your tree. And then you kind of grow from that. It's like, okay, well, if this is what you can do to save your tree, can we do that to save these trees? Can we do that to save these oceans? Can we recycle? Will that help? Can we not consume as much? Can we reuse this? And it just kind of grows from there. So instead of just throwing all of this information at them about why we're messing up so much, start them slowly and say, this is what we have. And then start kind of engaging them in what's happening and everything else. Cool, so I feel like we kind of included the questions with that, but we are at time now. We're starting the 10-minute question part.
Yeah, I mean, we actually started early.
Yeah.
So we don't want you to start early. Mike, you had a question. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention David Sobel is the author. He says that we have to nurture that relationship and teach that respect before we can ask the students to say it.
Yeah. Do we have any more questions? Yeah.
What about students who've never like been around nature, who like raised in very urban areas, there's not a tree anywhere, it's all concrete.
Yeah, and that is an issue that a lot of people are seeing, but it is possible to go buy some dirt, a pot, and kind of show this. And whether or not we think it's there, nature is everywhere, even in the cities. There's always going to be a tree somewhere, or some grass, or a weed, or something. In the classrooms, you could do rooftop gardens. You could do class gardens. You could put the sprouts on the wall, and like a piece of tissue paper in a plastic bag, and have them all grow up. It can be difficult to have them have a connection with nature when that's all you have, but at least it's something. And then you can create field trips to go out into the woods or country, whatever you have semi-close by.
Kind of go off what you just said. I work in an all concrete environment, and we have full-on 2-hour discussions about connection to the environment and what's going on, and the drought that's going on in California. And a lot of depth and learning that goes in with that. It can be done just through technology.
Yeah. of stuff. Like a few of our schools in Tulips Journey North, they don't have an area for to plant the tulips. So what we'll do is we'll bring these pots and get a couple bags of soil, $10, and then everybody can plant it all together. And just make sure it has some sunlight, make sure it gets water, and it still gives them that connection. At least it attempts to give them the connection of it. This isn't, I'm not saying that this presentation or this method is ideal for everyone, but it's at least a start. Like, I'm not an expert by any means, but I think everybody can start sprouting their own ideas, maybe create it, and form it to what they specifically need or can use.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, I'd like to thank Ryan for his wonderful presentation and the excellent job of incorporating that experiential piece. A couple of comments. One is absolutely changing the chairs to a circle changes the power dynamic in the whole room. So I think that there's really good reasons to change the design of the classroom. I heard a couple of people comment and talk about traditional classrooms or traditional education. I encourage you to, you can say that if you want, but I encourage you to think about that, because sometimes to me traditional education means more traditional from the land. I mean, I think, where's Graham? Well, I always pick the person that's not here. But Graham does a lot of traditional education, which is like back further. So the word like mainstream education in the United States, to really contextualize it, especially when you're writing your papers, be thinking about that. I want to also welcome Deb and David, who are on the Adobe Connect, so they're watching live. Ryan presents. And so Deb Matlock would send greetings to La. I don't know if Deb can see. Can you put the camera on La for a minute? There we go. So, and other people have, Deb Matlock is also La's mentor. Other people have taken courses with Deb Matlock, right? So she's right here with us.
She says hi.
She says hi. All right.
Dave says great presentation.
All right. So I wanted to welcome Ben, and also to welcome La. He is also an adventure education student who is here and who will be presenting his qualifying presentation too. Back to the presentation. It's at 4 o'clock. There's going to be Casey Jones is presenting about school gardens, and that's because at Orem School, which is also Orem Ranch, they got a $1.5 million grant for their school garden. Can you imagine that? But this guy is like way into it too, so I think it'll piggyback on Ryan's presentation really well if you're interested in that sort of thing. And I'm sure making the connection, he's a really nice guy, very down to earth. Oh, because he's in the earth all the time. So you can make that connection, and even if you come back a different time, visiting Orem School is pretty incredible. And they do grow much of their own food that they use in the school.
That's something that I forgot to mention actually. With the school gardens, it provides a lot of healthy foods for the students to take part in and to actually eat. And a lot of the schools have been taking those plants and using them in the school lunches, and that's able to provide them with free lunches. Which I think is fascinating. It starts showing that, well, I could go eat at the grocery store or the gas station and get a bag of chips, but this is a lot healthier and I can do this.
So I don't want to be like, I don't know what to call myself, the bad guy. There's a lot of negative energy right now going around with like GMOs. And I was wondering, in terms of like growing your own food to eat and stuff like that, will there be some type of education with like pesticides and the reality of like how it is not harmful? And
which part is not harmful?
I mean, just like GMOs in general, like if you want to break it down and actually talk about, what's negative and what's not. I just know because I have a personal connection with someone who works for BASF, and so it's like, he teaches me and he's taught me, what is bad and what's not bad, and these labels of how we just use this umbrella term of like GMO, it's all terrible for you type of thing.
I actually don't know enough about GMOs to teach anything on it. I'm more into like, let's make our own food and not spend money. I'd rather work and get some food than spend money on food. But
I think what's also refreshing about some of these ideas though is that it's more perspective. So if your school or your class has the resources and the time and the scientific emphasis to go that route, and it can, like what Chris was talking about, if your school has a very holistic program that brings all the subjects together, that's great, but a lot don't. And so it is segmented to this period for this amount of time. So I think these kind of ideas of just bringing things indoors make it accessible to so many more areas, and you can fall on anywhere along the crunchy spectrum that you want.
Yeah.
To go ultra crunchy or to go more that mainstream. 45 minutes. This is your EE for the day, and I think that's applicable in either environment.
Yeah.
Get in what you can. One of the things that Ryan said is really important is about that do local first. We've had a number of master's students in adventure education focus in that environmental education piece, and I know Kristen Litz also did an environmental education piece, and what she put together was a way of looking at environmental education curricula to see if it included the components that would help people, the kiddos, build first a sense of place to learn to love the environment, and then to help them with an ethic of care, just equal literacy, and also critical thinking skills, to put those like 4 components together. So you might combine that and look at her thesis along with Ryan's qualifying paper to see a lot about what people have been thinking about. And then finally, as we're getting ready to transition to Blake, so everybody is being recorded, and we have sent this URL out so your family and friends can all watch you if they want. We're making adjustments so that you were also recorded.
I saw that.
And after your qualifying presentation, you will write a personal reflection again about your qualifying presentation. I want you to wait until you watch yourself to write that. And so this is for you either now because you're presenting, or later because you'll present next time or next time or next time. But watch yourself first, because there'll be a whole new perspective. I'm sure you all have watched yourself on plenty of videos and films, so that part won't be new, but the really thinking about the presentation and different changes and different parts of it may be new. So please do that. No, I didn't find you awkward. And somebody had a very wonderful question, and that is the relationship between the qualifying paper and the qualifying presentation. There doesn't have to be a relationship at all. Many people write the qualifying paper and then say, okay, I'm going to make this into a presentation or an experiential time. That's fine. Some people do their qualifying presentation first and then write the qualifying paper. Here is why we have these two things. The qualifying paper says, I can write scholarly. That is one of our outcomes of the program. We want you to be able to communicate in a written scholarly way. That's why we have 2 outside readers who aren't associated with Prescott, who are like, their job is to take it apart in the most positive way. So that we have that understanding of what it's like to submit a journal article, or what it's like to have it really critically reviewed by what would be called a peer review, but they would be peer review of people who are established in their fields or whatever. And then the qualifying presentation is another outcome of our program that says you can communicate scholarly orally. So those are the 2 purposes. The content can be related or doesn't have to be related, but we want to see that you can communicate orally in a scholarly manner. And what I like about both of these presentations is it shows that scholarship absolutely includes experiential pieces. It doesn't diminish the scholarship at all. In fact, it might enhance it. So please don't think that you have to do any particular kind of presentation, and we're very open to that. And I really want to thank his presentation. And it was very wonderful. Yeah, you get the hand.